So this is the year 6000 Wikipedia. Now this was shocking to me when I found out about it, and I did a video a while back, but I think I have dissected it a little bit better here. I just wanted to cover the basics the first time I went through it. We're going to go through it again just to remind you guys about it, and we're going to figure out what this, well, we might not figure out, but we'll get closer to figuring out what they have in plan for us and how they operate. So, for those who don't know, the year 6000 is referring to the Hebrew year 6000, which they believe is from Adam. So if you believe my theory is correct, Adam is basically the first Hyksos ruler. Very, very ancient. We probably, at least I don't have any idea of who it could be, who is Adam. But Adam was basically like the first ruling class. He was the first elite, and I think he was probably, well, all right, so think about the whole Moshiach, the Messiah that they want to bring back to rule over all humanity. If, in fact, this is not their first time doing this, which there is evidence to suggest that, I'm not saying that is the case, but I think there is evidence for it. It's interesting how... All right, so think about how long humans have existed, especially Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon, all of that. We've existed for a while. Why do we only have maybe like at max 10, 12,000 years of history? That's about it. Well, they like to operate in these cycles of 7. So I suspect this is not the first time that they have done this. My fear, we'll talk about this in a bit. My fear is that this might be the last time that they do this. Or at least this is the time before the last time. If we have another shot, it's only one more shot. And I haven't done the calculations. I've done the speculations. This is a theory that I'm just looking into. It's mostly inspired by a couple of comments that Silas has made. And just so you guys know, next week I'm not going to do a stream. I'm going to, well, actually, yeah, I will do a stream. It's going to be on Friday, and it's going to be with Silas. And I'm not entirely sure what we'll talk about. He wanted to talk about, no, I won't spoil it, but he had an idea in mind. I don't have a big idea in mind, but we will do a talk with Silas, and I think that one will be a fun one because Silas he's a smart guy. I mean, he's also sort of young like I am. And he has like so much information. He's definitely been researching this way longer than I have. But that being said, I feel like I've gotten up pretty quickly for how long I've been researching this. So, but I do agree with some of the comments that he's made, and I don't know if he's alluding to this, but I've picked up on this idea that maybe there's seven sets of 7,000 years. They like the cycle of 7. But it seems like this has happened before. So if this has happened before, then there's probably a 7 cycle. And once we hit the last one, I think by that point, there's going to be a great break. Unless they have a bigger cycle planned, I actually do think they're crazy enough to want to destroy all of humanity. And I think they will. No doubt about it, they're crazy enough to do that. But that being said, if this is a reset, this is either our last time most likely or our second to last time. And that's just speculation. But it's going from my brief knowledge to where the Cro-Magnon and Neanderthals were groups of people, and well, the potentiality of when they first developed a form of consciousness. I could be wrong about all of this, but it's fun to speculate. And sometimes it's useful to speculate because that gives us an idea where we might be heading. So, year 6000. According to classical Hyksosian sources, The Hyksos year 6000 marks the latest time for the initiation of the Messianic age. The Talmud, Midrash, and Zohar state that the date by which the Messiah will appear is 6,000 years from creation. According to tradition, the Hyksosian calendar started at the time of creation, placed at 3,761 BCE. So, actually, I will say too, people have been bringing this up, and I am curious about it. It's entirely possible, too, that they've manipulated the dates. I mean, a lot of the dates we know are manipulated. I've been listening to some theories that speculate we're actually 1,000 years have been made up, and even a lot of our history has been made up. But I've even had people messaging me that, for instance, things like ancient Rome might not have been a real thing. Maybe ancient, or maybe the not Middle Ages, maybe the Middle Ages. Maybe the, what was it? The Dark Ages wasn't even a real thing. I am not sure where I stand on this, because that's a lot of research. That's a lot to go into, but I think it's possible. So I do want to say I want to look into that a bit more. I find that a fun idea to entertain, but these people are so crazy to engineer prophecy. I wouldn't put it past them to make up 1,000 years or two, just so that they could bring themselves closer to this messianic age. Now, who knows if that's what they did, but we can speculate. So the current year, which is 2023, 2024. Now remember, whenever we talk about these Hyksosian years, they're not exactly the same calendar. So when it says this year's 2023, 2024, it means the Hyksosian year that takes place in between those years. So we are still in that year. The Hyksosian year is year 5,784. So, by this calculation, the end of the 6,000th year would occur at nightfall of the 16th of September, 2240. That's a little close to, they like doing things in September and October, I will say. But that means we have about max 200 and something years left. But that's ignoring. Oh, I did write it down, actually. Yeah, it will be year 2240 on the Gregorian calendar. At max, I wrote, we will have about 216 years until the coming of the Messiah, but likely it will be much sooner, and we will explain that in a bit. The belief that the 7th millennium will correspond to the Messianic age is founded upon a universalized application of the concept of Shabbat. Based on Psalms 94, one of God's days is believed to correspond to 1,000 years of normal human existence. Just as in the Bible, God created the world in 6 days of work and sanctified the 7th day as a day of rest, which is Saturday, by the way, aka Saturn's Day, and that's not, it's actually very well known. They write about it themselves. We just can't get to all this in one presentation. It's coming. It is believed that 6 millennia of normal life will be followed by 1 millennium of rest. So just as they work, I wouldn't really say they work, but basically as they plot and scheme for 6 days, they rest on the Sabbath. Why does God say to keep the Sabbath holy? Well, Saturn is the god of the harvest. He actually is representative of cycles. This is actual mythology. You can look into it. He's the god of time. He is Kronos. So he represents time and cycles. So he can flip things on their head. Once the end of the cycle comes, death and rebirth. Why do we celebrate Christmas during Saturnalia? It is the death of the old sun, the death of one system, the rebirth of another system. They love these little cycles. They play with them. They tinker with them. They're a group of people. And, well, the significance of the harvest is that, once we all die off, once our productive period is done, just as it is with land, they harvest it and collect what has been made. So all the fruits of our labor, if we just would have stopped working, actually, if we just would have stopped working for a bit and stopped letting them collect from us, we wouldn't have this problem. So they, plot and scheme, and then they harvest at the peak of our labor. So they wait those 6 days. After that, it's a harvest day. They don't just do this for days. They go beyond that. It says here, the Talmud also draws parallels between the Shemitah, or sabbatical year, in the 7th millennium. For 6 millennia, the earth will be worked, while during the 7th millennium, the world will remain fallow. Fallow, desolate, empty. I think that's what that means, right? I probably should look it up, but I got this in presentation mode. I'll look it up. Give me just a second. Make sure I'm not misleading people, because I don't want to do that. Sometimes it would help to write out these definitions as I look them up for the first time. Yeah, plowed or hollowed, meaning they harvested it. So fallow means that they harvested it, like Saturn wants them to. He's the god of the harvest. That's why he's depicted as a scythe. And that's why the Grim Reaper has a scythe for harvesting souls. It is the harvest. There's a lot of interesting symbolism, and a lot of it is actually used in practical usages. It's not just symbolism, it's code words. I remember Silas in one of his videos recently talked about in ancient texts it described using these scythes on the field, but they didn't actually harvest the plants. And what he described they were doing was they were spraying the plants to poison people, basically. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. So according to the two opinions in the Talmud, Rav Katina and Abaya, the world will be harov, or ruined, or desolate during the 7th millennium, suggesting a less positive outcome. So here's the interesting thing. You might think that they're looking for this technological paradise in which they'll rule us like 1984. We actually, Ayn Rand might have been right if you've ever read Anthem. They might be leading us towards a primitive age of destruction. I should have looked at the age in Time Machine while we were looking at that, the age of the Eloi. I wonder if there's any significance about that, because now my brain is just going. Now that we're into the stream, I wonder if there's any significance to that, if that falls in cycles of these 7,000s. So, we might look into that later. I don't have anything. I'm doing the stream differently than I normally do. I wanted to stand up for these streams so that I could be more energetic about them, and I actually do feel like it's helping, but because of that, I don't have anything to write in.